welcome to part 4 of I Want to Be Like You, Dad, on dealing with dysfunctional families. I'm Dr. Stan, and hey, you know, I sometimes you wonder if the family that you're raised in was maybe a setup by God all along, that, you know, by observing your own family, you can learn a whole lot, good, bad, and ugly. Well, in my family, as you'll read in the book, I Want to Be Like You, Dad, it's pretty dysfunctional. Pretty much anything that you might find as a generational pattern. Now, remember, I don't use the term generational curse because Christ became a curse for us. But generational patterns certainly do exist. And I mean, I can't help it. I'm a bit like my dad. I'm a bit like my mom. I've got a bit of my grandparents, etc. And so in the book, I talk about the Rose family. A rose by any other name still has thorns. But my family had all kinds of crazy stuff in it. Now, the reason I bring that up is simply that it's helpful if you're going to work with dysfunctional families to first and foremost take a look at your own. You know, it's important to remove the log before we take out the speck. And so it's good to take some time. And if you've not done a genogram or something like that where you actually map out some of the symptoms and problems of your family, it's really helpful to do that. But it's also very helpful to do that with families that you're counseling, with couples, etc. You know, a couple brings in the junk from not just their family of origin, but from generations. And so you can learn a lot about what the likely patterns are, how they're going to respond to stress, etc., by evaluating the family that they've been raised in. As I began to look at that, I realized, you know, as I was doing some of my psychological studies and all, that really the Bible speaks about this issue. It's the sins of the father that are visited to the third and fourth generation. Of course, it's the blessings of the Lord to 1,000 generations. But here, you know, just thinking in terms of 3 and 4 generations, again, I began to look at my own family tree, and that's what I've written about in the book there. But one of the things you'll find is that symptoms often are transmitted generation by generation. The word sin there in the original Hebrew language is the word avon, which means a twisting or distortion. In other words, it's not so much huge sins necessarily, but you know, if you're shooting at something and you're just slightly off the mark, but the target's only 10 feet away, you're still going to hit the target. But if the target's 1,000 feet away, you're going to miss everything altogether. Just a slight deviation from what is the center point, and you miss the whole target. Well, oftentimes symptoms in families can be manifested in 3rd and 4th generation, but it is quite interesting that normally by the 5th generation, if you will, a lot of those symptoms begin to fall away. It's also important to remember that just because someone was raised in a dysfunctional family system does not guarantee that they're going to have dysfunctional marriage and raise dysfunctional kids. It creates about a 25% greater chance of that. Now, I believe that we need to deal with issues in our lives. And when someone comes to you for individual counseling or for couple or family, being able to map out, it's a great teaching tool to show them, well, here's what you brought into your marriage, or here's what you have in you because of the family that you were raised in, including the generations past. And you can now do something about these dysfunctions, because I believe that God wants us to be healed, to be restored. And so in our next visit together, we're going to talk about, or begin to talk about, that healing restoration process. And it is a process, and counseling is a great tool to help people face the truth about themselves, deal with issues of the past so they can move forward with a greater sense of hope for the future. So again, more on that in our next session.